Hey guys, this is Yatish. I am starting the call to go over WNC and do a recap of that. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this. Hopefully it's informational for those of you that were not able to go. For those of you that were at WNC and got to see my face, got to see me talk a lot, got to work with Katie as well and Ashley. Hopefully you guys learned some stuff, as well as Justin. I'm sorry, yeah, we all were able to facilitate some of the sessions. But this is an overview of the finance track and everything that was covered for that, or as much as possible. This video will be not as detailed as the actual sessions, of course, because we did those over 3 days and it was multiple hours. But the purpose of this is just to get you to have a better understanding and be able to reference some of the slides that were shown at WNC. So yeah, without further ado, I will stop showing you my face and start showing you slides so that we can talk about it. Okay, awesome. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see the slides. It's pretty simple. It says WNC Recap, and this is produced and created by MC Flywheel for MC Flywheel so that we can be the flywheel generation. So yeah, the first thing was on the 1st of January. So the first day was on day 3 of the conference. It was the Finance Network 1.0 space. So first we talked about the state of the National Association, the state of local association. So basically the health of the organization, ICQS, is broken into National Association and the local associations. So the MC level, the national level, and the LCs. So that's each and every one of your LCs. And so we did a quick look at the business of ICQS. We did a P&L overview, which is profit and loss. And then we looked at the reserves that currently exist for the national level. So this is all a national focus. And then we talked about the 5-year financial growth plan, which is this idea that in 5 years, or in the span of 5 years, we've already begun this process, we will be able to grow in order to achieve sustainability or get closer to it every single year. And so it's a 5-year financial growth plan so that we are able to act sustainably. We have the proper reserves, and our profit and loss statement leans on the side of profit, of course. And so the main objective for this was that you will leave with a better understanding of how the business works. And so what this means is that there are 2 sides of ICQS. So first, let's look at our business model. There is the ISIC entity, and there's global current. So ISIC United States Incorporated is basically the parent company, and we've got 2 sort of umbrella companies. And so that's ICQS, that's us. And so that's the MC and the LCs. Products that we sell is Global Volunteer, Global Talent, and Global Entrepreneurs. And so our revenue approximates at around $700,000 annually, and our expenses look around $1.7 million. And so that means that ICQS by itself is operating at about $1 million loss. But then we have another company called Global Current. They work alongside the ICQS MC team. And so it's a single entity. There are a few people. And basically their main product is the J1 visa program. So the J1 program, excuse me. And so we have about $1.5 million in revenue for that. And the expenses are around $500,000. So what that means is they're operating at $1 million profit. And so when you sum the 2 things up, it's $2.2 million in revenue and $2.2 million in expenses are around there. And so what makes that kind of dangerous is if it's a little bit over that, great, we made some money. But if it's under that, that means we're losing money somehow, some way. And that's not what we want at all. And so a second thing is the key takeaway for this is that ICQS's revenue does not support all the expenses that it has, as you could clearly see in this slide. We're losing $1 million a year, or approximately that much. And so adjustments to the model need to be made. The MC and LCs have different focuses in revenue generation. So LCs do exchange, while the MC supports this exchange development and brings in alternative revenue sources in the form of partnership development, sponsorships, whatever it may be. And so since there are different focuses from the national and the local levels, we have to sort of understand how this model works and efficiently make it maximize that process. And so then we went into the LC level. And so this is every single LC in the year 2016. So if yours is not on there, that just meant that there wasn't specifically a tab for you, or you're either an expansion, or it just hasn't been updated yet on Intact. And so this was pulled directly from Intact for the year 2016. This is the net surplus or deficit by LCs. If you look carefully, 27, I believe, entities or LCs are profitable in terms of their net surplus, whereas a few, so 1, 2, 3, 4, if I'm counting correctly, have deficits by in terms of exchange revenue versus expenses that they have incurred. And so then we talk about the current financial balances of LCs. And so this is excluding the most recent affiliation fees that were taken out, but this is this sort of reflects the general state of which LCs are positive and which ones are negative. And so we're looking at a little about the same data as the net surplus and deficits. You're seeing some that are still more profitable depending on reserves that they have and things like that. And so this is very indicative of the national reserves strategy, where the 5-year plan is at the national level to get ISIC US to be either profitable or break even in terms of sustainability practices. And so what does this mean for the local levels? Basically, like I said, 27 LCs with positive bank balances have the reserves necessary to drive exchange and develop projects for new investing. So reinvestment is a core focus that I see is one of the ways that ICQS can drive itself forward. And so this is incredibly important to perpetuate growth. So drive exchange forward, drive growth financially forward. And so the main problem is that the discrepancy between LCs in terms of bank balance, net surplus, and even growth path or capability varies significantly. Chances are ISIC in Austin, which is my home entity, operates at a much different scope or level than, say, ISIC in New York. The reason for that is because we have different investment plans, we have different financial states, and we have a difference in net surplus or deficits or exchange and things like that. And so you have to take all of these factors into account when you're looking at how the local levels can become sustainable, so that that trickles or translates into the national level, having the opportunity and the ability to be sustainable. And so we moved into a self-reflection space. So just a quick recap, what does this mean? I'll just keep this up for 2 seconds. But basically, the national and local levels create the organizational health of ICQS. And this is a very important point because it's often overlooked that even the smallest of differences in revenues, expenses, discrepancies can cause a huge impact on how ISIC United States is able to operate. Without the local support and the local exchange and financial growth, the MC is powerless or not as capable of driving growth and making sure that that 5-year sustainable plan or growth plan actually can occur. There's a lot of reliance on the LCs performing, and the MC's focus is to help that support. And so we walked into a self-reflection space, like I said. It is, what is leadership? And so basically the focus of what is leadership was a very lead-oriented session for VP Finances, for members, and it focused around 20 questions that were asked from all 20 delegates. And each delegate had a different question. Shout out to Ashley for having really, really good questions that we were able to implement into this session. And they ranged from what is your leadership style to what are the 3 main driving forces for your who you are today. And then it was who inspired you and how did they make you into the person you are today. Questions like that, very non-financial questions that really drive home what it means to be a unique individual in this leadership body called ISIC. Because a lot of these people were taking on TL roles, they were new members seeking leadership roles, they were new VPs. And so what is leadership was a core idea or strategy for opening the space in terms of creating the mindset of what it means to be a financial leader and how that relates to our abilities, our performance, our strategies, and like the mindset or the level of mindset that we need to grow efficiently, effectively, and quickly, really, and be a very adaptable organization. And so then we defined behaviors that basically tackled the question, what makes a top 10 VP finance? This is a huge part of the MC flywheel journey, is this idea of being a top 10 entity. And the only way for that to happen is if we have the top finance people in the world, honestly. And so what makes a top 10 VP finance was the question that we asked. We had a space where we basically brainstormed the ideas of what makes a top 10 VPF. And in general, this idea was that individuals that are a top 10 VPF are self-aware and play on their strengths. They're an expert in operations and have experience with exchange, active tracking for clarity into what's working and what's not, and being able to play to their strengths, even if they don't necessarily have all the experience with exchange, and even if they're not completely aligned with what's happening, they're able to create opportunities to develop these skills all along the way. And so the main criteria, or the main like sort of job description for a top 10 VPF, is that this is what basically makes or breaks the ability to perform at the level that is necessary to be a top 10 VPF. And so this is the JD. So I'll read it off to you. Tracking approvals and payments and comparing this to projected minimum revenues and goals. Maintaining the integrity of the budget and updating actuals on budget tool or way of accounting. Ensuring that you or your team is overseeing a correct reimbursement process within budget and it's coded correctly. This is alignment with the national coding. And so then you've got reporting financial state to LCP. This needs to happen almost on a daily basis, if not more. And then upholding requirements for governance and membership. So everything that's highlighted is the accounting portion. So you've got tracking approvals and payments, updating actuals on the budget tool or wave, ensuring that you and your team is overseeing a correct reimbursement process. And then coding is very important because this is part of the accounting process. So then we've got budgeting. So this is maintaining the integrity of the budget and everything is within budget. And so this is the mindset or the firm guidance of how your LC operates, is making sure that the integrity of the budget is intact and everything is within budget, because if you didn't budget for it, that means you didn't plan for it. And then approving something that isn't planned for is a tedious and very mind-consuming process. I can tell you that as a former LCVP finance. And so then we go into reporting. So comparing this to projected minimum revenues and goals, and then reporting financial state to LCP. Reporting structures are vital to making sure that your LC understands where they're at so that they can make effective and strategic decisions that drive forward financial growth, exchange growth, and every kind of growth, really, including membership development. And so then finally, we've got auditing. So this is the final step. So upholding requirements for governance and membership. So making sure that you're in line with our compendium, making sure that all of our financials are in check, are being properly allocated, properly utilized, and the protocols and procedures are being upheld, basically. And so this is the prime JD for what a top 10 VP finance should look like. And then we had some discussions and came up with these 10 statements. So we had this at the beginning of every single session to remind people what the mindset they need to have, the behaviors that they need to exhibit. So today, like every day as a VP finance, I choose to be transparent, knowledgeable, confident, increasingly connected, communicative, cooperative, reliable, supportive, creative in meeting my goals, and a sharer of financial knowledge. So these 10 things are, some of them are overlapping, some of them are independent altogether, but to truly be a top 10 VP finance, the network that was there, the 20 individuals, came up with these 10 statements that truly capitalize and summarize what is necessary in order to drive us forward to be the growth mindset entity that we are. So then we talked about a few more things, closed up that space, and then we came back for the second finance network space. And so this was strategic planning. And so what this meant was that there's a budget. It is the final result of the planning process. So this is the definition of a budget, actually. So it's the final result of the planning process. It is the company's blueprint for action, reflecting management priorities in the allocation of organizational resources. And they act as an internal communication device that links the various organizational departments or divisions with each other and with top management. So the budget not only serves as a numbers system and a way of understanding where your LC is headed and where it should be on track and creating a timeline around that, but it is truly the the way of finance, increasing the transparency and the communication strategies within the LC to make sure that we drive growth forward in an effective and concise way. And so the budget is important. And so then the fourth thing is by setting goals in terms of measurable performance criteria, budgets serve as standards against which actual operating results may be compared. So like I was saying, it creates the idea or the objective of a timeline that the LC can adhere to and can understand where you're at, whether you're behind, whether you're ahead, whether you're on track. And so then they serve as control devices that allow management to pinpoint areas of the company that are strong or weak. And so this means that you can analyze basically what is going right and what is going wrong based on adherence to the timeline, based on results, based on performance, productivity. A lot of factors go into this, based on membership development, membership engagement, empowerment, whatever it is. And so then the sixth thing is they attempt to influence and motivate the company to continue to act in ways that are consistent with the effective and efficient operations and their incongruence with organizational goals. So alignment is everything when it comes to the budget. Making sure that your budget reflects the alignment and the sort of front that the entire LC has in terms of being firm, being rigid, and being disciplined in order to execute effectively. And so then we talked about the budgeting process. And so this is 4 steps. So it's goal setting, implementation, control and performance evaluation, and management. And so then we walked into the strategic fund. And so this is basically where the strategic fund is it's not discretionary. Discretionary is the wrong word, but it is a way for LCVP finances and the finance team to basically allow innovation and create investment projects or initiatives that basically drive the LC forward by providing tangible results as a result of something that is never been tried before, as a result of something that is variable or very high risk, high reward. And so one of the key tools that we provided, which I'll make sure is provided at the end of this session, I'll send it out, is a budget framework. So if they're making their functional budgets, they need a template to fill in their plans. So here's an example. So this is what the MC Flywheel does. And it's basically in the month of January, we've got an expense or investment description. So what the focus area is, so in this case, it's like a B2C campaign. And then you've got priorities in terms of 5 being the highest priority, 1 being the lowest priority, what the cost is breakdown-wise. And so then you understand exactly what you're spending money on, exactly what you plan the output to be, and exactly what you can see as the return on investment or the sort of the key performance indicators of an investment. And so then we talked about direct proposals to EPFs. This is a really cool Podio system that allows the strategic fund to be in the hands of finance. And so if you are the final responsible for all the strategic fund, not the operations VPs or the project heads, then this is a process of feedbacking and asking for more and refining the proposal process. And so then it basically talks about the total proposed investment, the timeline for it, which is important, the responsibilities, the KPIs, so the key performance indicators, the output, so what's going to happen as a result of this, what is the outcome, which is slightly different, and then whether you approved it or not, and then the amount that you approved. So it'll, you don't have to approve all of it, or you can say I'm approving none of it because I think you can do this for free or whatever it is. You have to be very firm but fair in your assessments. And this is a nice way of getting the facts quickly, easily, and effectively without having to worry about the loss of information or a gap in communication. So then the key tools, we have a brainstorming space. So if you have operational knowledge, you can have one-on-one meetings with VPs or project heads to understand what direction they wish to push the function, what direction their investment practices are going towards in terms of strategy and the strategic fund allocation. And then you have a group discussion. This is really important because the one-on-one basis basically creates an alignment between you and whoever the head of the project is. And then a group discussion makes sure that everything is centered around this end goal and this alignment that has occurred. And so making sure that you're firm but fair, I'll keep saying this, making sure that you have an alignment that is firm but fair is the only way to truly make sure your strategic fund does not go off the rails and you don't waste money. And so then we talked about rewards and recognition. We have 4 tips and tricks. And so the first thing is actually the best case practices are from an external consulting firm. And ironically, the idea of the conference is to lead the breakthrough. That was the theme of the conference. We found an external consulting service called Breakthrough Consulting. And you can click on that. We will have the output of these slides, of course, so you can click on that. You can check out their website. You can check out their strategies. But the 4 things are defining employee behaviors you want to encourage. The second thing, rewarding employees also depends on your budget. If you have no money, can't do anything. If you have too much money, don't spend it all. And then following the SMT approach to recognition, this means that everything is specific, meaningful, and timely. And then we've got the final thing, which is MRI, so measure, review, and improve. And so we talked about all these things. We talked about the strategic fund. We talked about strategic planning. We talked about, like I just said, we talked all about the consulting strategies and how to implement rewards and recognition systems into your LC, into incentivization, things like that. And so then we talked about the Finance Network 4.0 space. And so in between the 3.0 and 4.0 space, we had a Finance Power Corner space. And this was between VP Finances and LCPs. I'll be doing a supplementary call when we do LCP finance education to talk about the Power Corner, what went on there. But essentially it is how the interactions and the relationship between the VP Finance and the LCP ought to be and should be in order to create the most conducive learning and engaging environment for the LC and exchange growth, all these things. And so making sure that that relationship is understood at a professional and social level, and making sure that you capitalize on those metrics. And so in the Finance Network 4.0 space, we talked about team standards. So the team standards have been sort of revitalized, redefined, not redefined completely, but they've been updated, and it's very interesting and it's really cool actually. But the main thing is we've got a building, performing, and closing structure. And so you've got the introduction, so to get to know, team bonding, induction to the function/area. Then you got your plan, so the co-creation of a team purpose, expectation, goals, strategies, budget, JD, deadlines. So JD, job description. And then you've got your personal goal setting. So each individual sets their goals and what they want to be the outcomes and outputs of the sort of the team process or the experience. And so then you set individual goals, action plan, making personal goals for development. It's important that each individual understands why they're in the position that they're in and how they want to engage themselves and create a better version of themselves on a daily basis. So the building phase is absolutely important to making sure the performing and closing phases are effective and meaningful and actually have value. And so the performing phase is regular team meetings, so regular tracking of the plan and team performance, team reviews. And this is where really the honesty is important, and the drive and discipline is very, very essential to how these team meetings go. You have to be very consistent and very fair in how you, like I said, firm and fair, in how you engage the team so that you can create the best performance environment possible. And you've got regular one-on-ones, one-to-ones, to do tracking and coaching of individual performance and personal goals, giving feedback that is not only effective in how it assesses a person's performance, but also is a guiding tool, because the importance of being in a leadership role is the actions you take, not the position itself. One of the main things that I live by is this quote called "Leadership is action, not position" by Donald McGannon. And it's sort of something that I live by on a daily basis. You can ask me more about it. And so then you've got team days. So making sure that you're not working all the time, because these people are here to engage in membership relationships, building a personal connection with each other, but they're also here for functional competency, functional performance, functional improvement, and those hard skills and soft skills need to blend together. And so team bonding, team activities, appreciation. It is very important that you distinguish feedback from appreciations, because feedback is meant to really refine how a person is performing, making sure that they're functionally doing things. But appreciations tackles both your functional competency and your functional achievements, with who you are as a person and how you are engaging other people, because I believe the true engagement and development of membership is from members helping other members. And so then finally, you've got closing space, which is two main things. So report, transition, and debrief. So the closing experience is as vital and important as the building and performing phases, because I say this and I truly mean it. Reporting and understanding how to create transition properly is it's very valued, but I think it's undervalued in its current state. And so key results achieved and not achieved as a report is the easiest way to make sure that people understand the history of your function and the history of your performance. And then transition is making sure that there are no knowledge gaps, there are no transition gaps in one team experience to another. The membership can be the same, and the VP can step down and become a member of the same function. But if the transition didn't occur, then there's not continuity, which is super important to making sure that we're able to consistently repeat the actions that have worked and refine or throw out the actions that don't work. So knowledge, skill, attitude, and document transfer is vital, especially in the finance function, because you're working a lot with budgets, you're working a lot with accounting, you're working a lot with the history of the entity for the whole year, and making sure that this is transferred to whoever your successor is, whoever the next membership pool is the only way that you can actually achieve performance at the highest efficiency. Because yeah, you can achieve performance, but if you don't have if you have a transition gap or you have a knowledge gap, it sets you back too far. And so then you've got a debrief. So you've got the team experience debrief, reviewing key learnings, and then what the next steps are for the function, for the individuals in the function. Because ISIC is, speaking from personal experience, ISIC is something I wouldn't have joined if it didn't mean that I was engaging in things that were new to me and were like really growing me effectively. And so the next steps in helping people shape those steps is important all along the way, during the building, performing, and towards the end of closing phase. So making sure that you are hitting all of these 9 things is the most effective way that you can lead a team, be on a team, and achieve as a team. And so then we talk about the top 10 teams driving operations. And so we've got the building, performing, and closing phase. Mapping this out in a timeline is super important. And then you've got the building phase, the first stage of a team. People start to work together and understand who is in the team, what the team is about, and what you will achieve together. This is just a quick recap. So then the performing phase, we've got the second stage of a team. This is where you're able to see team and individual progress. You've got high performance happening through the team members, knowing who does what, where, and when, and creating regular touch points to coach and develop. And so that's the feedback mechanism. Then you got the closing phase. So this is the final stage of a team. It's a closing, but it's also a new beginning. Like I said, the next steps is always a new beginning. People are always starting something new. An adventure is never finished until the journey is officially closed, And so people reflect on what worked and didn't, and then what's next. And the team prepares the next team. And so these are the next steps. Preparing the next team, preparing yourself as individuals. It's a very intricate process, and I think it is something that can consistently be refined. And so then we talked about one of my favorite things. This session was taught to me by Samson Wu, who's the MCVP Finance before Katie. It's the MIT method. We talked about it at Rocks in fall of 2015. Oh, wow. Yes, fall of 2015. And so the MIT method is managing, investing, and tracking. And so the method to the madness is you got managing, which is a stay in business focus. So resource allocation ranging from financials to time to everything in between, the overseeing of the LC from a financial perspective. And so managing is super important. And then you got investing, which is the most important of these 3 things, and I'll talk about why. So the strategic development of new investments from start to finish. You've got building upon existing projects and advancing strategies for new opportunities. So this is opportunity creating and investment focus. So creating new opportunities, being strategic. We talked about strategic funds. We talked about strategic planning. This is the investing part of the MIT method is the most important, like I said. And then you've got finally tracking. So tracing the financial footprint of the LC and ensuring all of the aspects of the financial process are delivered, from accounts receivable to affiliation fee payments. And so this is the ROI focus. And so we'll talk about the 20-80 method, but the reason I say investing is the most important is because you want 80% of your efforts to go towards that, while managing and tracking take only 20% of your weekly sort of whirlwind time. And so we talked about functional planning as well. So let me quickly talk about 2080 really quickly. So 20% of your effort should go towards the managing and tracking, because these are not effectively things that you are engaging in on a action-oriented basis. They are mostly overseeing and making sure nothing is going off the rails. And so the stay in business on ROI is making sure that everything that is planned to happen happens. And if it's not, understanding why, questioning why, making sure that you push people to achieve the results necessary to get back on track. And then investing is a lot of strategic focus. And so you don't necessarily know how it's going to pan out, but you know that it needs to be in the positive direction. And so the OCI focus, opportunity creating investment, is making new opportunities, creating new investments, projects, whatever it may be, to ensure that investing is done in a way that isn't jeopardizing the state of your LC and the financial sustainability and growth of it. And so investing is 80% of your efforts, because it does, the easiest way to put it is it's a delicate process. And I think that is something that is often overlooked as being valued, because investing is a core part of what the finance function does. We are not just back office accountants. We do a lot more than that. And I think we need to make sure that that is understood. This is where being active and being proactive rather than reactive is super important for the finance function. We can talk about that on a personal conversation, but I really believe that proactivity is the way that finance will drive itself forward. So then we talked about functional planning. So this is not the financial plan yet, but functional planning was basically understanding the direction that your finance function is heading and how to shape that. That is a as much a group conversation as it is an individual conversation. But then we walked into your capacity. So how much extra time do I have outside of my functional duties? And so then this was just basically a more in-depth job description. And this is super important to look at and internalize. But basically, managing, leading, and tracking your team is part of your weekly duties. And then you've got tracking approvals and payments and pairing this. So this is basically the JD that we talked about earlier. I can go over it again. I'll make sure that this is up for a few seconds, but then we'll talk about KPIs. So your key performance indicators are numerical and very quantitative, so that they're tangible goals. And so the percentage of concentration of investments in your focus program. So each LC has a focus program that they're running, making sure that your investments and efforts are aligned with what your focus program is, so that you're not investing in a program that isn't where you're going to see or hope, like where you're. I mean, it would be amazing to see results and achievement in other other programs, but your focus program is what your LC has deemed to be the focus of your efforts and the place where you can achieve the most for ICQS. And so the second thing is percentage increase of budgeted revenues is reasonable. This is it is very tangible in the sense that you need to make sure that your growth path is accounted for, and you are accounting for it through your budget, through your actions, and through your approvals or denials of investment opportunities. And so then the percentage of your goal achievement. So this is where you track your budget, you update the actuals versus the budgeted, and then you've got your number of monthly reserves. So this is cluster based, which means that within the OD model, the organizational development model, each LC is in a certain cluster, and your goal is to make it to the next cluster in terms of sustainable growth. And there are a lot of financial factors to this. And so the number of months of reserves is whether or not your LC can function if none of your goals are met in terms of revenues, and you're either A, only expenses are occurring, or B, nothing's happening, and making sure that you're able to survive for the affiliation fees and any expenses that are expected. So that is something I pride myself on, is the ability to create reserves for your LC, because I think that is one of the legacies that you'll leave, is how much better off did you leave your LC. And then you've got the number of calls that you had with the NST, which is the Master Support Team, which is what I'm a part of, per month. So you have a network manager that is assigned to your LC to work directly with you. They understand your focus program. They understand your local reality through experiences and through, like I said before, the importance of transition, through transitional knowledge, so that they can hit the ground running and they don't have to ask you some rudimentary questions to understand what your LC is doing. They are able to jump in and effectively pinpoint what is going on. So use these people like they are your best friend and you need advice for anything, but it's more than just advice. Checking in with these people is important, and a part of your key performance indicators, The fact that the number of calls that you have with your NST as a part of your key performance indicators indicates to me that it is vital, and I agree with this thing. For national calls attended, so you have national calls with me, you have national calls with the rest of the NST, and these national calls will cover mine. My focus actually on this NST is I'm the financial education manager, so you will hopefully be educated in a timely and effective manner through the things that I tell you and the amount of words that I speak at you on a screen. And if I meet you in person, we can have discussions about the education cycles, the financial importance in the LC process, the national process, global process, whatever it is. But not enough about that. So then you've got your measures of success. So then you've got 100% audit pass rate. So at random, audits will occur, and your LC might be chosen. My LC, for example, was chosen 5 times in the course of a year. This was a very fun opportunity because it was part of my measure of success to pass the audit. And honestly, the audit is not something that you should easily be able to fail. It is something that you should be doing anyway in the tracking and managing process to ensure that you can provide the things that the auditors are asking you for in order to make sure that you are on a healthy organizational growth path financially. And so then we talk about LC's returns and opportunity creating investments, and these are at least 50% concentration in your focus program. So like I talked about earlier, each LC has a focus program. It could be OGV, it could be IGT, it could be OGT, it could be IGV even. Your focus program will not be IGV actually, but you might be running IGV, so that's something to keep in mind when you're looking at this percentage. But your concentration of your investments and the returns that you're making should be from your focus program, honestly. And so then we've got LCs are making investment, spending, and saving decisions based on actual progress, not on budgeted progress. And you need to, this is a refining process. You need to make sure that you're on top of this and you understand where you're at so that you can make decisions that will, minimize risk and maximize, output and outcomes. And so then you've got LCs following the governance and internal financial policies. So reimbursement policies followed with financial management certification. So financial management certification is a quarterly thing where basically you can submit reimbursements, you can be an active player in the financial requesting process and the everything that goes with that. And so the financial management certification on a quarterly basis, make sure that you understand what you're doing, because if you don't understand what you're doing, you're putting the entity at risk. And so this is a simple questionnaire that will come out every quarter that makes sure that you know what you're doing and you are an upstanding citizen of ICQS. So then let's recap. So you've got value-added roles, so the relationship is clear. So your roles are complementary and you have the importance of trust. And then investment priority, so you're making sure you're aligning your investment priority with your LCP, with your VPs of operation. And so there's one thing that we agree on that is non-negotiable. So this is actually the 5 things, I'm sorry, that are talked about in the Power Corner space. And so this is specifically pertaining to your LCP-VP finance relationship. And so your relationship is clear with your LCP. And then you've got, there are things that are non-negotiable. So there's one thing in particular that we agree on. And how can we achieve ambition and making sure that this one thing is essential to growth. And so then we've got ongoing reportment, so defining when they meet, so your LCP finance meetings, what we cover, and then communicating one-on-one versus with the EP. So there are certain conversations that need alignment. I've used the word alignment at least 1,000 times in this session, but aligning yourself with your LCP, make sure that you have a front and you are firm but fair in how you make decisions. And so there's certain things that you should have in a one-on-one context before you bring it to the attention of the ED, whereas there's certain things that the ED must know immediately, and the LCP and VP Finance understand that it is a discussion that must be had with everybody. And then you've got decision making. So your VPF makes decisions in X circumstances and your LCP in Y circumstances. So this is setting a clear relationship in, like the 4 value-added roles. So defining who is in charge of what, who oversees what, who makes the decisions for certain things, and understanding the current performance and trust that you have with each other, and developing that. And so then you've got oversight, so keeping the lights on, so making sure you understand membership, compliance, and financial practices. and ensuring the LCP understands this as well. So then you got planning. So we had EB planning, where basically the EBs worked together. And so I'm just gonna keep this up here. So the EB had planning on aligning the budget with the goals, with operations, creating a timeline, all these things. So the planning was super important to understanding how to move forward. And so then this is just a recap visually. So you've got non-negotiable investment focus that the LCP and VP Finance have decided on, that they've communicated with the EB. Then you've got strategic fund total allocation. So this could be a dollar amount that you've said, okay, we're going to set aside this much for strategic funds to create new opportunity creating investments. And then you've got your financial goal, which is your revenue per program. And so then after that, we sort of closed up the planning space. And then on the final day, we talked about this idea. So just a quick disclaimer. So the title is called Let's Make the Cake, #Let's Go. #Let's Go is an empty catchphrase, more or less. And it's the idea that the flywheel will keep turning and we can achieve results. And so Let's Make the Cake was just a joke that I made at the conference, because we started the first session right after lunch. So it was everything, all the title slides, the slides were named after food. And so this is the final slide. So just a throwback to that. So we asked 3 questions. So knowing where I am now, what will I accomplish to be a top 10 VP Finance? And we made sure that the top 10 qualities that the group of 20 deemed necessary to be a top 10 VP Finance were up, so that they could reflect on that. They had about 4 or 5 minutes per question, so they had 5 minutes to answer this question on a sticky note. And then we asked, is a quote that I made up. So it's, I commit to leading, living, and learning by the values I've set for myself, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, now and forever. And so then the question is how, and so they had 5 minutes to reflect on that. And then putting the 2 together, what will I contribute to ISIC? And so these 3 sticky notes, or sort of three notes that they had about 15 minutes total for, were internalized and then externalized by placing these notes on the top 10 VP Finance skeleton. So we had a, what is it called, a flip chart with the skeleton of top 10 VP Finance. And so knowing where I am now, what will I accomplish to be a top 10 VP Finance? We had a drawing of the heart. And so okay, let me backtrack real quickly. So the body and soul, the body and mind of an LCVP Finance that is a top 10 accomplishing member is for this question. So we had the skeleton, so it was the head and body, and so they placed their sticky notes there, symbolizing that they have, with all of their efforts, their body and mind, that they will accomplish what is necessary to be a top 10 VP Finance. And then I commit to leading, living, and learning by the values I've set for myself. This quote is internalizing, so this is within your heart. I have set forth these goals and I will live by these values. And so the question is how? So then they put these sticky notes on the heart. And then finally, what will I contribute to ISIC? So ISIC is bigger than ourselves. It's not something that we are not ISIC. We are a part of ISIC, and we push ISIC to be what we want it to be. But ISIC is a huge entity that is global in nature and absolutely massive. And so this was a thought bubble. So it was, what will I contribute to ISIC? And so they placed their sticky notes for this question on in a thought bubble to say, what will I contribute to ISIC that is bigger than myself, but together we can achieve all of these things that people put up. And then we had them review it, we had them celebrate, it was the closing of the space. And so, yeah, that was basically the speedy version of 3 days of what has gone on. And so the purpose of this is just to understand where we were headed, what the objectives are for the conference, and how we can achieve the results necessary to perform, really. So yeah, I am happy to have done this session. If you guys have any questions, please shoot them my way, ask them on here. Yeah, thank you.